Hello everyone, Dr. Toula here, practicing clinical and Jungian psychologist and creator of story image therapy and sit shadow work. I'd like to talk with you today about something called symbolism and how important it is as part of sit shadow work to use symbolic stories and images. The reason why I use symbolic stories and images and metaphors is because that is the language of our unconscious. So for example, in video games, in stories, in movies, in a variety of media, we will use these symbolic stories and images like fairy tales, like myths and legends. We will use the hero's story or the hero's journey story or heroine's journey. Okay, those sorts of stories have a moral or a message or information to deliver, and that's how we tap into our unconscious, both personal and collective. So a person, let's say, who's doing dream analysis as part of sit shadow work might dream about death. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to die. Unless they have prophetic dreams, which very few people actually do, most people will dream about, let's say, death as something representative of the end of something in their life and the beginning of something new. So it's symbolic of that. And so once they understand that, we're putting the pieces of the puzzle together. We're helping the person to become more conscious of what's actually going on for them on an unconscious level. Then they can start to implement changes. So I use bibliotherapy, which is book therapy, or writing therapy in combination with reading therapy in sit shadow work. So story image therapy is very much based around the symbolism in a story or the symbolism in an image. And without that, it's just general conscious work. So we can't really do shadow work effectively without using the language of the unconscious, because the whole point of it is to find out what it is that you cannot consciously answer. So, for example, I had a young lady today who was struggling with feelings of low self-worth, poor self-esteem. Now, this young lady doesn't know why she feels inadequate, because she knows that actually she's fine. Okay, she has no inadequacies that she's consciously aware of, but unconsciously she feels unworthy. So to find out why she feels unworthy, we can't just cognitively, consciously reason that out. She doesn't know. And I don't know why she feels that way. So therapy is going to be pretty pointless if we're trying to just ask her why she does a certain thing or why she feels a certain way, because she obviously doesn't know. And so by using symbolic stories and images, we can go deeper. So for her to reprogram her old cassette of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, that's what's replaying over and over in her head at the moment. So how do we change that? Is we go deeper through the stories and the images. So for this particular young lady, I suggested that she look at a movie. We looked at a movie with a character that was similar to herself, who looked similar to herself, who acted in a similar way to herself, and then I started to ask her to analyze as part of sit shadow work, to go deeper through the stories, through the symbolism, look at the character and ask herself, what is it about that character that is similar to me? Okay, how do I react in response to a stressful situation? Is that similar to the character in the story? How does the character cope when they're feeling overwhelmed, when they're feeling very stressed or rejected or abandoned? What do they do? How do they feel about themselves when they do that? So I'm trying to get this young person to go deeper into their unconscious, to look and on a much, I guess, holistic level, rather than just trying to reason it out. Because like I say, you can't reason out trauma. You can't reason out strong emotions. Emotional responses are not always rational. So to understand how to change those irrational patterns, we've got to go deeper. And so that's where the sit shadow work comes in. So using mythological stories, fairy tales, fables, folk tales, using those mediums that people have used for centuries to deliver information is how I will do it through sit shadow work. So for example, I have written Frog and Scorpion in the Boardroom as a corporate fairy tale. So it's designed to teach people about how to handle high stress, high conflict, high pressure situations through a fairy tale format. I also use a fable that originated with an Aesop's fable nearly 3,000 years ago called The Farmer and the Viper. And over the centuries, that fable has grown into or developed into the Frog and Scorpion story, and there's different variations of that story all around the world. So I will use a fairy tale format, let's say, to teach about workplace issues or high stress issues. I will use the Frog and Scorpion in the Bedroom, for example, was written as the hero's journey. So it's a hero's journey format or heroine's journey format that the person is actually reading. Now, how long have people been using the hero's journey format to tap into the unconscious? Thousands of years. Okay, mythological stories all have a similar pattern, a similar hero's journey format, the same as movies today. It's all symbolic, it's all imagery, vivid imagery that taps into the unconscious. So if you're wanting to do shadow work, if you really want to uncover and break unconscious patterns, unconscious memories, thoughts, emotions that are not working for you, don't try and cognitively, consciously reason them out. You won't be able to. If you could, you would have done it by now, presumably. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in counseling. Okay, if you're going for therapy, it's because you're trying to learn more. If you're doing shadow work, it's because you're trying to go deeper. So don't try to do it consciously. Don't try and fill out a form or a book, a journal that's just got to fill in the blanks. Okay, try and go into the stories, into the imagery. Use your active imagination. That's what Jung talked about. Jung was an expert in that area, in the symbolism realm. He understood the language of dreams. He understood the language of the unconscious, and he knew that we had to use that language if we wanted to understand and unlock our unconscious. If we wanted to break unconscious patterns, we do it through the symbolism. So that's why I use symbolism, symbolic stories and images to tap in, because it's the only way that you can get sustainable long-term change. Thank you.